so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? The land of the free and the
You are listening to the Metal Summit, your source for all things rock and roll.
Jay.
All right. Hello there, everybody. Children of the Corn, our friends, our family, our loved ones. We are super duper stoked to have you joining us again Wednesday night right here on the Metal Summit. We're super duper stoked that you took a little bit of time to cruise down Sentimental Street so you could be with us right here this evening. And so we're going to kick things off right in with their usual band of outlaws, Bobby Dreyer, Angel Alamo, Max Ash, Psycho Steve. But first and foremost, we got to involve and introduce our guest. Took time out to rock with us tonight, Night Rangers, Eric Levy. Thank you, sir.
Applause. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
Welcome.
Absolutely. So you're talking. Oh, for sure, man. You were talking a little bit with us off the air about being out in California. How's everything treating you out there up in like the Bay Area?
Well, yeah. The nice thing about if there is a nice thing about not being on tour is that at least I live in a beautiful spot. You know, the weather out here has been great, and for the most part, it's all things considered with what's been going around the country these days. You know, the Bay Area, we got hit with the pandemic early on, but today Gavin Newsom was announcing closures of counties, and I didn't see any Bay Area counties on there. So my hope is like, okay, we got hit first, but maybe that's going to be benefiting us going forward. But who knows? You know, we're in unprecedented times. Sorry, that's my 3-year-old checking in.
Hey, special guest.
She figured out I'm on a podcast and split. But yeah, super fortunate to be in California. It's, weather here is outstanding. People are cool. It's it's a good spot.
Absolutely. Eric, at the time that everything hit, like what was going on with Night Ranger at the time? Were you dominantly off the road working on music? Were you prepared to hit the road, or were you currently on the road at that time?
Oh, we were Night Ranger had like such an incredible year lined up, which is the tragedy of this having to happen in 2020. We would have already played Sweden Rock opening for Guns N' Roses. We had Sammy Hagar, Whitesnake, 30 plus shows, tours around the United States. So not being able to do that is a bummer. And it's when all this was going down, we were like everybody else, like it's what's happening. It's so we ended up playing. Our final show was right when things were just starting to lock down in mid-March. I want to say maybe March 13th. And we played this small town in Tennessee, and it was actually great. It was a great night, and people had fun. But then the next day it was like, all right, we all split up and flew our separate ways. And I've been in the Bay Area ever since.
Nice. No, definitely, man, for sure. Let's kick it off to the panel and let start spreading the wealth and spreading the joy. And you know what, Psycho Steve, I think we're gonna have you started off today, my good dude.
Okay, no pressure. Okay, so you've been in the band since 2011. The question is a two-part question. Did you know the band members, and did you try out, or how did you get the gig?
Sure. I knew Jack Blades.
Okay.
We were unbeknownst to me when I moved into this house, was 15 minutes away from where Jack was living at the time. So it's I was playing at a church at the time, New Vintage Church in Santa Rosa, California, that Jack was a part of. So I had met him there a couple times on Christmas services. And meanwhile, he had a project in the late 2000s, throughout the 2000s with Tommy Shaw from Styx called Shaw Blades. So,
Right.
So Jack had Jack and Tommy had my buddy Will Evankovich, who was the music director at the church and also now plays lead guitar with the Yasu. So it all kind of came together. Will was working with Jack, and I was playing in a rock band with Will. And met Jack through there. And as far as auditioning, I think my audition, I think was mostly doing the Somewhere in California record that we recorded in 2011. Is when Jack first invited me to be a part of it. He was like, we've all talked about it, and we would love for you to be the keyboard player on this album. But then going forward for the live shows, let's wait and see how it goes. So I think just the process of being creative with them in the studio was probably the best audition I ever could have hoped for. For. Yeah.
Nice.
Absolutely, for sure. So, Bobby, we always know that you're chomping at the bit to get into some gear, dude. So why don't you gear us, man?
And Eric knows that for a fact. Look, I went onto your page, and I mentioned before when we were off the air, listening to first thing that hit me, Jan Hammer. I was listening to it. Jeff Beck came right to my head. I'm hearing Blow by Blow and Wired and everything else, and it's just
I'm massively influenced by Jan. Thank you.
But then I'm looking at all your keyboards, and another gentleman who I grew up through the late 70s, 80s was Jean-Michel Jarre, who, and I'm like looking at your keys and I'm going, man, this guy is like surrounds himself. It's like Rick Wakeman, on steroids.
Oh, killer awesome.
John Lord.
So with that, and I can tell you're into older gear. What is that piece of equipment that you go, I have to have this? It's that.
Oh, I think this Moog 1 synthesizer that came out a couple years ago was I was fortunate enough to be involved with Moog in the maybe 2006 through 2010ish, right before I got involved with Night Ranger, and it's at the time that I first got involved with them, I was pretty young, and I still think with a lot of musicians it's like, what's the point of getting an endorsement with a company? What's the point of working with a company? And I think for a lot of young musicians, maybe the first answer is, well, I want to get free gear. But it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, getting free gear is cool, but it's, what's really like the best thing that you could possibly hope for? And to me, that's getting instruments made that you feel like maybe you were kept in mind to a certain degree as they were making them. So it's getting to see some of the Moog synths that have come out later, and features where I'm like, I would love to think that they imagined me when they, made this knob inversible when you're, sweeping this LFO speed and things like that. So a couple of years ago, they finally came out with their long-awaited polyphonic synth, and the thing was, Moog was for the longest time just making synths that you could only play one note at a time. So all of a sudden, having like this polyphonic beast of the Moog 1. It's totally transformed the way that I approach Moog synthesizers too. It's now I'm completely polyphonic about it. If I had to pick an instrument, that would be the one.
So this is a two-parter then. Who was the person who inspired you? I mean, there was probably, and I'm not going classical in that, but look, we're all about the same age. Was it Elton? Who was that keyboardist that you've seen and go, yeah, that's the guy I want to be? Was it ELP? Was it Wakeman? Who was the guy who made you go, really inspired you to go this route?
I think not just one person, but a lot of the names that you just named. Like I remember the one and only time I saw Rick Wakeman in concert, and it was during their Yes reunion tour, and I can still close my eyes and remember his keyboard solo that night, and how blown away I was, and got home and immediately started trying to mimic it. But as far as like keyboard players who have really inspired me the most, I think Jan Hammer would be on that upper echelon for me. I had an opportunity during the aughts. I was playing with a kind of a jazz fusion jam band called Garage Mahal, and and our bass player, our bassist had worked with John McLaughlin, who was Mahavishnu Orchestra, where Jan Hammer, his first really prominent gig. And yeah, to me, still some of his most brilliant playing is our bass player Kai Eckhart. He had worked with John McLaughlin's trio, and then live at the Royal Albert Hall. Kai Eckhart, phenomenal performance, and our guitar player in Garage Mahal, Fareed Haq, had been in Joe Zawinul's band at one point. So Joe Zawinul, Weather Report. So getting to play jazz fusion music for a decade with that kind of lineage was really helpful, because Joe Zawinul as well. Getting a chance to hear firsthand, like, here are some of the ways that he approached synth programming to make his patches sound alive and make the keyboard feel like a living, breathing instrument. So, it's as far as synths go, I would say those guys. And as long as I'm on the jazz fusion topic, Chick Corea, Return to Forever. If there's any one of them who really sparked me, I think it was hearing Chick for the first time. The first time it hit me, and it just completely blew my mind. Return to Forever, Light as a Feather is the album. The first one that did it for me. But then, I went and started checking out Romantic Warrior and continued along that path.
That's awesome.
Dude, that's super duper cool, Eric. In fact, Garage Mahal was actually where I was going to go with my question, and the way, so the way I'll kind of taper it with this is because you were with them, like you said, for the better part of a decade, a solid 10 years. Just talk a little bit about like working in that band. You put out a pretty good collection of music in that time, and then when you stopped playing with them to do Night Ranger full time, I suppose that probably had a lot to do with Night Ranger always having a pretty consistent touring schedule, to where I can't really imagine that you would have been able to do both.
Wow. Yeah. I guess to answer that second part first, I guess it's not a coincidence that the same time that I left Garage Mahal and joined Night Ranger, and then within a year I had my first kid, and all of a sudden I was feeling like stable enough to be, this seems to be a really solid band I'm with, and I can feel comfortable maybe at this point having kids. But it was much rougher touring as far as doing van tours, and a lot of times we were just going out with just the four of us, like nobody helping or anything. We'd load in, and we'd play a show, and at the end of the night we'd load out our gear and load it into the van, and maybe try and like get some cheap hotel rooms somewhere, or maybe find somebody at the bar who's like, hey, I got like a couch and a couple air mattresses, and we'd be like, cool, yeah, we'll come over. Living like that for a decade. But musically, it's the thing about the jam band scene coming from the Grateful Dead, where it's like it's not even so much about the albums, it's actually more about the live shows. So that was fun in the Garage Mahal years. It was like people. People were actually there to hear you take chances, and they were cool with like, you know, a bunch of searching, and if the band didn't sound all that great for a while, you know, they would stick with you for it and be patient with you and so because of it, like archive.org actually is a great resource of free. I want to say there's over 300 Garage Mahal shows freely available. So yeah, we that was a live band. But yeah, it's I can say I wouldn't be the player I am today. No question. That was like 10 years of like higher learning university, playing with those guys from night to night.
Wow.
Absolutely, for sure. And just so I heard you correctly, you didn't leave Garage Mahal for Night Ranger. Did I hear you correctly that you had actually already left the band?
Oh no, so yeah, sorry if I'll tell you the story if you're I guess it's a podcast, I can talk for a while, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. So the guy who had gotten me into Garage Mahal was Fareed, the guitar player, and he was my professor actually when I was in music school at Northern Illinois University. Wow, I just completely spaced out. Oh, that's right. I was telling the story. So meanwhile, in 2010, it was he was leaving the band. He was planning to leave the band at the end of the year, and we were going to continue. We had record label was on board saying they were ready to do another one, and booking agent was on board, and we had even recorded a few new tunes, and like we were totally ready to go. The only thing that was missing were like actual gigs, and so we had this one last tour scheduled between Christmas and New Year's of 2010, and the night before I'm leaving to go on this tour, I got a call from Jack saying, "Hey, our keyboard player for Night Ranger's leaving the band, and we're about to record a new album, and then we're going to go on a world tour with Journey. Are you interested?"
Wow.
And I said, "Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow, but I'll be back in a week." And so went on iTunes that night and downloaded to my iPod the Night Ranger's Greatest Hits and the Hole in the Sun album, because I was like, well, that's the most recent one. And so I'm like on the road, not telling anybody about it, just, you know, with my earbuds in, like checking it out. And so we're driving home from the last show, and which was up in British Columbia. So we ended up on New Year's Day 2011, like spinning out and black ice, and ended up having to like abandon our van in Washington State, which was the only thing that Garage Mahal, the band, actually owned, was the van. So it was nice. It felt like it was kind of a clean break. Like, okay, that part of my life is over now, and I'm really happy that I was able to just focus in on Night Ranger. I'm not sure I quite knew what I was getting myself into, and then all of a sudden, once 2011 got going, and it's like, new album comes out, shooting a video, going to Japan, touring Europe, and then touring the States for 4 months with Journey and with Foreigner. 2011 was like a rebirth. It was like a fairy tale year in a lot of ways. But yeah, that was the transition. It was it just somehow really worked out. The timing just was incredible.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And it's also good too that nobody was injured with the spinning out on that too, because that can always have some unfortunate there.
Oh, it was like slow motion. I can still remember. It was just slow motion, just spinning. We did a full 360 in the road before we ended up in the ditch, and the trees in front of us, right behind us, but like we just happened to land in nothing but snow. Yeah, It was surreal, but.
I can imagine. Absolutely. Max, why don't you jump in here, man? I think it's time to get a little bit of that accent going.
Thank you. Eric, so My question is, first of all, I know you guys are huge. Night Ranger is huge in Japan, right? Can you share a memory or an experience there? Because it's amazing. You can watch the YouTube videos, and it's you guys are like adored. People adore you there.
Yeah, there's yeah, I'm just blown away every time I'm there by it's how much they've embraced me, and it's I'm not an original member, but they're just so kind to me, and
Cool.
yeah, really great. And yeah, Japan is like a whole other. It's like a whole other thing. It's we'll usually our tour manager will schedule our lobby call times early, knowing that there are going to be people camped out, asking for autographs, and you'll see like these hardcore people who are like every time you're in the lobby, it's like they're hanging out like Eric's picture, and it's
Aw.
like they've always got something else that they're asking you to sign. So yeah, it's just amazing the level of there's one guy out there who makes these replica guitars, these Brad Gillis guitars, and it's he's got all kinds of stickers on it, and it doesn't look like something you would buy in a store. It looks very unique to Brad.
Wow.
And so this guy, like, I don't even know how he finds all these stickers to make his guitars look exactly like Brad's. I remember one time we were over there, and Brad's like, "Oh, did you get this one?" Showed him like a new sticker he had put on. So Dad's like, "Oh, can I take a picture?" And takes a picture of the sticker so he can try and find it. Yeah, it's a whole other level over there, and playing a show is like, wow. I'm still blown away playing a show, because it's like we'll stop playing a song, and you'll hear like a few seconds of applause, and all of a sudden by the time Jack is talking, it's silent, like absolutely silent. Nobody's on their cell phones, nobody's talking to each other. It's like everybody in there is like actually like all of them are listening to Jack talk at that moment. Wow. And they're all just like, yeah, like really just like listening and very quiet. And then it's like you start playing and they're just like, "Don't tell me you love me," and they're just like totally going off while the song's going on. Yeah, it's amazing playing for the Japanese.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question. So you play like a special song for the Japanese audience, right? So they ask you for who? Can you tell me the story behind?
Oh, are you talking about the
There's a Japanese
that we were talking about?
Yes, at the beginning.
Beforehand, yeah. So that was just before we had gone over there, Jack had just been like, "Hey, what would you think about composing something on the piano that's like just special for the Japanese people, and check out some Japanese music and some kind of meditative." And I was like, "Wow, I love that idea. Thanks, Jack." And I went and just went on Apple Music and started really listening in, and I realized that okay, they're mostly sticking to pentatonic scales. Forgive me, non-musicians. 5-note scales. If you play a piano and you only play the black keys, that sounds like a pentatonic scale. But it's like within the course of the pentatonics, it's a lot of improvisation, and I hadn't even really realized till I really started listening how improvisational that classical Japanese music is.
Wow.
So it actually felt really freeing to me. I basically just got up there and I had a bit of a form in mind, but it was a lot of just improvising with pentatonics.
You guys want to watch 30 seconds of that video? I have like a very, a short video. You want to guys watch it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
let's watch.
Cue it up. And then Angel, why don't you jump in right out of the break, buddy?
Cool.
All right.
Levy.
Oh,
There you
Metal.
are. There we are, guys. So that's amazing. Of course, yeah, that the metal show and the metal summit, and we are putting like relaxing and meditate. But we need that sometimes, you know. We have different moods. So,
right
Jay,
on. Even metal looks for balance. Yeah, yeah. I like that. Absolutely.
I need some incense to put in the room and some candles to chill with that. So, Angel,
Yes.
what do you got?
Just want to say hi to our fans, loyal fans that tune in every week. Matt, Bridget, Levin, Lucy, Tony Singleton, first time listener. Welcome, buddy. We hope you tune in every week.
I grew up with Tony.
So we got two questions from fans that are related to keyboardists. Mark wants to know, what do you think about Jonathan Cain from Journey as a keyboard player? We know you got the chance to tour with him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was really a blast getting a chance to listen. It's like I never got sick of listening to Journey. For as many nights as we were playing with those guys, every night I was out there listening. I couldn't get enough of that music. And yeah, I remember that year in 2011, Jonathan had this beautiful solo piece that he was playing, and it developed as the summer was going on. So I had the opportunity to hear it develop. But yeah, it's looking back from the perspective of what that band was with Greg Raleigh playing, who Greg is a hell of a keyboard player. So and Jonathan's absolutely a different style of playing, but what Jonathan brings musically is like, yeah, without question, he's like, mastermind behind their 80s success. Those it's songs like Faithfully, and it's or even songs that weren't the ballads but the keyboard parts that he was coming up with. Yeah, he's the man.
Cool. And I have one more fan question and a quick hello to Mitch LaFont, who's watching. How you doing, Mitch? Thanks for watching.
Hey, Mitch.
Happy Canada Day. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
All right, we're going to get to Bruce. Bruce wants to know, best rock keyboard player, John Lord, Garth Hudson, Richard Wright. Your thoughts?
Wow. Well, Richard Wright has influenced me the earliest on, I guess. Yeah, when I was first discovering Pink Floyd, that was a real eye opener. Those tones. I'm still going for those tones. That's a big reason why I was so into the Moogs to begin with. I remember my dad had a mini Moog, one of the originals in the 70s, and like in the midst of the 80s and the DX7s and Corrigan ones and Roland D50s and all of that, he was like, here, this is like an old analog synthesizer. It can only play one note at a time. It doesn't stay in tune all that great, but have fun with it. Learn how to synthesize. Little did we realize that like now you try and find one of those on the used market and it's a lot. But at the time, yeah, the first sounds that I was into trying to make on that thing were like the Rick White like wind sounds, things like that, and those Moog leads that he was coming up with. Loved him. But yeah, once I really started checking out Jan Hammer, wow. As far as like who's the greatest and who's the most influential, certainly of the synth players, because I feel like I hear a direct connection to like when I hear Chick Corea in those 70s recordings. Like, okay, yeah, he was definitely checking out Jan. Like Jan, when he was coming out with it early on, Mahavishnu, 1972. Like nobody else, nobody was doing that in 1972 that I'm aware of. So, I think another part of my appeal to the reason why I'm drawn to Jan and drawn to Chick Corea too is when I was growing up, I was playing I played drums in the school band. That was my band instrument because school band doesn't have piano, but they have drums. And if you ever find a recording of Jan Hammer playing the drums, like he's a sick drummer. he's a great drummer, and I've heard recordings of Chick playing drums too, and he's phenomenal on the drums. So I think maybe that's part of my appeal to them is keyboard players who are really coming from a drum perspective as well.
Cool. Matt Porter wants to know, what is the first song that you learned on the piano, and how old were you when you learned your first song?
Wow.
Good question.
The very first is probably out of one of those beginner piano books. But the first song that I remember, the first popular song I remember learning how to play was Rockin' Robin.
Nice.
The old 1960s, I guess. Or was that 50s? Yeah. It's I was into boogie woogie really early on, like age 6, age 7 was, really into boogie woogie at that point.
Wow.
Oh man, that's definitely awesome for sure. Angel, do we have a question from you, buddy?
Oh yes. How does Night Ranger come up with the set list on every tour?
So there's when we're playing like a 75-minute, 90-minute, even 60-minute shows, we're usually playing Sing Me Away second. We're usually playing 4 in the Morning third. And then we've usually got what we call the March to the Finish, which is generally Goodbye, direct segue into When You Close Your Eyes, into Don't Tell Me You Love Me, Sister Christian, Rockin' America. So that's the usual. But that being said, there are nights where, just depending on the circumstances, or just depending on what we're feeling or where we are, where people's voices might be at for any given night. It's things will change here and there. Certainly when we play a shorter set, it's there's more experimentation going on with the order of things. But yeah, it's the middle of the set that has a lot more leeway. Where some of the deeper tracks, if we're going to play one or two of those on a particular night, it's somewhere in the middle is where we'll throw those.
Nice, right on. That's really, really cool for sure. Psycho Steve, I think it's about time we get a little bit of that sex appeal going.
Okay. So the question is, it's a 2-part question. 1, were you a Night Ranger fan before you joined the band? And 2, do you have a favorite Night Ranger song that you like to play?
Okay. Well, for number 1, so my mom was controlling of what she would allow me to listen to when I was a kid, and so like through a lot of the 80s, she wouldn't let me listen to anything that was current on secular radio. I could only listen to Christian rock, or I could listen to oldies rock, 50s and 60s. She was like, if it's our generation, you can listen, but she wouldn't let me hear anything modern. And but in 1987 we got cable TV, and then at that point it was like, okay, I had complete access, and I started watching MTV. And but the first Night Ranger video that I remember seeing was Secret of My Success, because that was 1987. So yeah, really most of the classic songs that I had missed out on. So that the band that I was actually more into when I was a kid was Damn Yankees. And
Nice.
I remember I had that first album on cassette, and listening to that one over and over and over. I was super into that album. I thought it was great. So it's in a way when I got into Night Ranger, like kind of my bigger thrills, unexpectedly were when I realized, we play Coming of Age, and we play High Enough, Damn Yankees repertoire. That was that for me. That was like, okay, yeah, I'm really playing songs that I grew up with at this point.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. And sorry, what was part 2 of your question?
Part 2 was, do you have a favorite Night Ranger song?
Oh yeah, I would say I love Sister Christian. I never get people ask me if I get tired of it. I never get tired of it because it's the magic of like Kelly will start it off and it's just me and piano, me and Kelly, and he'll stop singing and it'll just be piano, me accompanying all these people out there singing. They all know the words. It's really yeah, it's a great moment. But that being said, yeah, my favorite I think would be Call My Name.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a. Oops, sorry about that. Yeah, it's this that guitar the guitar solo outro where it's like. And then it just wraps around on itself. That's like such a killer moment to me. The way the song goes to that. Right on.
Give it up for Eric.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, a little bit of live action from Eric there for
Love
sure.
it. Thank you.
And since you got to break one of those out on there, guys like myself, Bobby, pretty much everybody on our panel has formed this question one of two ways, but it's really always been for guitarists. So what was the first keyboard you had, or the first piano that you really got to play on?
Oh, yeah, it's I learned how to play on a Wurlitzer electric on a Wurlitzer electric piano. I think my dad had traded a microphone for it or at some point. And so as a kid I was like learning whatever all I was practicing for my piano lessons. I think for my first 9 years or so was on a Whirly. Yeah, I think that shaped me maybe the way that it's not really a piano action, it's not really a synth action. I think maybe it was good for me learning how to play that and then adapting from there, because playing a piano is really such a different experience from like playing an organ or playing a synth. They can all feel really different. As Max can attest to. Yeah.
Absolutely, for sure. And then one more thing from me, and then Bobby, why don't you pick it up right after the answer? But I thought it was kind of interesting when you were talking about growing up on like Christian rock, and just kind of out of curiosity when it comes to like households like that, with the music that you were listening to for like things like Christian rock, did that include like Stryper, for example, out of that 80s scene, or did you learn about them a little bit more into the 80s and MTV?
Yeah, the interesting thing with Stryper is that it's somehow like they were the band, right? Like they were the band that managed to straddle both and like be a Christian rock band and be secular enough. It's like, yeah, somehow they're the only ones who managed it, at least in that era. So, but yeah, in early days, going with my mom to church 4 days, sometimes 5 days a week, and listening to nothing but Christian radio, Christian albums, the odd jazz instrumental thrown in here and there. Wow, where was I even going?
Oh, it's all
I started
good.
going down memory lane and I forgot where I was going with it.
Okay.
No, for sure, man. I was just kind of curious if like Stryper was a band you discovered because of like you had to listen to things like Christian rock, or was that more, thanks to MTV when you discovered them?
Oh, thank you. Thanks for bringing me back.
Oh, you're cool, dude.
Yeah, I was hearing more because they weren't really playing Stryper on the Christian radio station, at least the one in Chicago in the 80s. They weren't playing any Stryper on there at all. They weren't playing any Christian metal, to be fair to other Christian metal bands. But so the Stryper that I was hearing was from the cassette tapes that I was buying. They did have those cassette tapes for sale at our church bookstore. And it's another Christian metal band that never got nearly the attention, but they were a Chicago band. So I'm not sure how big they were out of there, but Res Band.
Oh, Glenn.
Resurrection Band,
Yeah,
Res Band.
Glenn.
Those dudes were super heavy.
My buddy was Glenn's drummer.
Really?
Yeah, he lives right up here in Pennsylvania, outside of Philly, and he played with when they went from Resurrection Band to Res Band, and then Glenn Kaiser went and did stuff. But yeah, a friend of mine up here was Glenn's drummer, and he was also Brian Wilson's drummer.
Wow.
Oh, no way. That's a combination. Oh, it's a small world. Yeah. I still put on those Res Band albums sometimes. It's some of those songs are super heavy and great use of keyboards too, like in a heavy way. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that whole thing. So I'm going to jump and pick it up now. So you mentioned the whole in the 80s, I did a lot of roadie work for a lot of the Christian bands that came through the area here. I worked with Come Alive Ministry, Harry Thomas. And through that, I met Jerry Gaskell and Doug Pinnock, who were playing with, Keggy, and then Ty was doing this. So I also did a lot of work with Michael W. Smith.
Oh, yeah.
So who were your, going on the keyboard end of that from the Christian rock, who were the guys? Was it Petra? Was it... there were a lot of amazing players that came out of that whole era who even went over, from Kerry Levgren made the whole changeover too.
AD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dio played on his album on the one Kerry Levgren album back then.
Oh, I didn't realize. Wow, Dio was
Seed
on
to
it.
Change.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even... Yeah, that's it. That's funny. I had my phone on Apple Music on shuffle last night, and an old AD track came on, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that music was so sophisticated." And it rocked. Just great music all around. Great production.
There were a lot of great players back then, but who were the keyboardists back then? From that era, who inspired you to go? Because. A lot of it was when the DX7s were coming out and, the Oberheims and, not just the Eddie Van Halen doing the thing, but everybody was using them then. And I think Michael was the first one who inspired me to pick up a DX7.
Really? Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Yeah, I was listening to a ton of, right, the Michael W. Smith Project was the first one, right? And then he came out with the rock album. The big picture, right?
Yeah.
And by the 90s, he was going more pop, but those first few albums, especially, it's the one right after it too. I'm forgetting the name of it. The Hand of Providence is the first track. Eye to Eye, is that? Yeah, those first four Michael W. Smith albums, super inventive songwriting too. A lot of modulations and really, really interesting places you wouldn't think to go, and that yeah, brilliant songwriting and the use of different synth sounds. Those albums were a huge influence on me. And I think on piano, actually, Steve Camp, if you remember Steve Camp at all. Yeah, just as for like playing ballad, it's the kind of style that I'm playing on Sentimental Street is the lineage of that. I would say absolutely goes back to Steve Camp. Checking him out as a kid. And on the gospel side of things, Andre Crouch, and Chicago has a big in the gospel scene. So we were getting gospel shows on our TV, and Andre Crouch was. I still go back and listen to those albums, and it's absolutely it's amazing to be able to talk about this, to actually be able to talk about my Christian rock influences and have people know who who these people are. Yeah, and it kind of blows my mind sometimes that this was like all I was listening to at that point in my life, and they've how many people in the mainstream are even aware of these names, and but they've been so influential to me.
Well, that it's just amazing because you hear a lot of people talk, and not just the striper in that, but the Phil Keggies. You talk to any guitar player, a lot of guitarists will bring it up and go, "Wow, Phil Keggy, here was this guy who blew me away and got me into playing guitar." But it's interesting that you bring up the Christian rock, but how it has transformed over the years from the 80s to now, that it's kind of, in the 80s, it was very segregated. Now it's kind of blends in with modern music. And I hear the influences in the Night Rangers, and not just the Stripers, but they're the King X and, John Anderson, and, everything's intertwined nowadays.
So it's on the Phil Keggy. Actually, there's a great Night Ranger connection there. Our drum tech, Rich Russo, is a great drummer in his own right, and he lives out in Nashville, and he's recorded with Phil Keggy on a couple of his recent albums. And it's great. And my mom had those albums too when I was growing up. That Flip Side album, where one was all acoustic and the other was all electric, and it's really inventive stuff. Also, great use of synthesizers. Love that music.
Awesome.
That's great.
For sure. Hey, Max, why don't you jump in there, my good man? We're missing that voice. I heart you, dude.
Let me go back when you started in Night Ranger. There's an album that you guys came right away. That is, I don't remember the name of the album. Growing Up in California, right?
Somewhere in California, yeah.
That's the song and the album too.
Growing Up in California is the song on the but the album itself is called Somewhere in California.
Somewhere in California. Sorry, I always have problems with that. Well, so what's the level of participation on the composition, writing in that album? Because it was like probably something new to you, like jump in and in a band and on a first record, for you.
Yeah, I'm so happy that that's the way that I met everyone and interacted with everyone at first, was in the studio. And for that first album, it was I remember a lot of days Jack would just be like, just come over and hang out, and we're probably not going to record any keyboards today, but just come over anyway, and be a part of it. So I felt like I was really a part of the process of the whole album. It wasn't like coming in and like, all right, we're going to do keyboards today and tomorrow, and here's the first tune, and we're going to try and get through 5 today, or it wasn't like that at all. It was like we were recording in Jack's studio at the time, so there was no time limit. There was no, we were just able to be there and be creative and have all the tools at our disposal to do it. So they were so great about that, making me really feel like I was creatively invested in it right from the start.
Nice.
Yeah,
it seems like it's a very nice group to be, to hang out. Very very nice people, nice souls, right?
Yeah, it's it really feels like a unit. It really does. It feels like. The culture with different bands, it's every group is different, whether it's a band or anything. The chemistry is such a part of it. So the culture of Night Ranger emphasizes this idea that we really are all in it together. So it's like the band hangs with the crew. We all hang with each other. It's not like anybody's putting themselves on a pedestal, or it's like we really are a unit.
Yep.
And that makes a huge difference. In my opinion, that's everything. It's like you can be a musician and be on stage and like play a wrong note, and there's going to be people in the crowd who are like, oh yeah, Eric just played a wrong note, or or there'll be people who will be like, oh, something sounded off. I couldn't tell you what. But there are also going to be people who just, kind of just whatever, kind of passes and doesn't really register much. But if you're up on stage and you have a bad attitude and you're not into it and you're not having fun, everybody's going to pick up on that. Everybody's going to respond to that.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's like, what is more important than, having a band where it's like when you're on stage, it's like, we really are having a blast playing music together right now, and we really do want to share that with whoever's in the building. Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you. Thank you for
Cool.
sharing, man.
For sure. Hey, Angel, how are we doing, my friend? How are the fans doing?
Oh, we're doing awesome. We got 2 questions from fans, both keyboard-related questions.
Mm.
Mark wants to know, Elton John or Billy Joel?
Oh, great question. I think in a way I have more in common musically with Billy Joel. Coming from when I was in college, I went for jazz to learn how to play jazz music, and my years with Garage Mahal were very much jazz oriented. And Billy Joel's also coming from that. You can really hear it in his. He's got some of those harmonies and those chords he plays. It's like you don't hear other people in pop music playing those kind of chords, and he manages to do it in such a way where it still is accessible, which is the magic of it. But I think as far as like somebody who's really had more of an impact on the way that I play, and maybe because I got to that music younger, but is Elton John, no, without question. When I'm playing a piano ballad like Sister Christian or any of them, it's so much of the way that I approach that is Elton John.
Sorry to jump in. Someone mentioned Sister Christian. Who was it? Angel. Julie Buchholz. Say that's her favorite song.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. Thank you, Julie.
And Jackie wants to know, what is your opinion on keyboardists Dennis DeYoung and Nick Rose?
Oh, well, Dennis DeYoung, it's been nice. Night Ranger and Dennis have done a lot of shows together. It's been like multiple a year every year, and I was when I discovered Styx, I was all into it. And hearing those classic keyboard tones and being from Chicago myself, it's like that never got old for me either. Like, and I have this approach when I'm hanging out with people who are original members of bands. I'm more like I'll speak when spoken to. I'm not going to go and talk to somebody like Dennis unless he initiates it. But he's always been felt very open to me and kind, and and then it's like he'll be on stage and I'm standing off to the side of the stage, getting goosebumps hearing these keyboard parts that I grew up with. It's a blast. And I'm sorry that the other name you mentioned is not
Nick Rose. Oh, Nick Rose from Duran Duran.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, forgive me. Right.
That's it.
Not. I would say not as directly as directly influenced by Duran Duran, but certainly, I guess when you look at it from the grand, how much music was influenced by Duran Duran, it's huge. They were the forefront of that British sound at that time. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and speaking of Julie wants to know why the name Night Ranger. I'm not sure if you could answer that one.
Sure. I wasn't around, but from what I've been told, that the band was called Ranger. And actually the original record pressing said Ranger, and they ended up changing it last minute because there was a country band called the Rangers, and it was apparently a really well established country band at that time, and Night Ranger was coming out with their first album, so Night Ranger changed the name, and I think they chose wisely.
Cool. And one more fan question. This is from Bridget Sullivan, who's also from Chicago, by the way.
Oh, right on.
She wants to ask, what advice can you give to people who want to play keyboards?
Well, I would say don't feel like don't feel like you have to set goals for yourself in the same way that you would set goals in other ways. It's because the goal of music is really the playing of music in and of itself. Like that's actually the process of it is actually what makes it worth doing. So don't feel like if I don't manage to be able to play like so and so that I'm watching on their Instagram feed, then I'm just going to give up. I would say never go that approach. It's if you're feeling creative inspiration out of what you're doing, then that's what makes it worth doing.
Nice.
Cool. And my question, I'd like to know, can you tell us anything about new music coming from Night Ranger? I'm not sure if you can say anything about that.
Sure. I can't say anything concrete at the moment. We did have it on the calendar in April, days blocked off to do our initial preparing to make a new album. And, sadly, we weren't able to get together in person. But that being said, there's been communication between us, and we're doing what we can in the pandemic era to be collaborating. And fortunately, we do have these amazing tools now at our disposal. Everybody's got their equivalent of a home studio, at least enough of a home studio to be able to record your parts and send them in. So yeah, we're doing what we can, and I'm excited. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Jay,
Absolutely. Right on.
Jay,
Yo, talk to me.
yeah. So we are getting close to 10 p.m. Eastern time. So
Wow,
why don't we
already.
do 10 seconds of sponsors? If you wanna name them, we can.
Yeah. Absolutely, for sure. Yeah. So we always, so Eric, our show always runs in the area of about an hour to an hour and a half, kind of depending on the flow of everything.
Right on.
Are you down for to rock with us for a little bit longer?
Yeah, I'm totally open to it. Yeah, let's
Awesome.
go
Thank
for
you,
it.
brother. Thank you,
Awesome.
brother.
Thanks
Thank
so much, man. But yeah,
Yeah.
just as Max said, we always want to take a little bit of time to thank the people, not only the fans that support us, because this is a show for you guys to enjoy, but we also take a little bit of time to say thank you to the companies that are also helping us, and supporting us as well to allow us to have a little bit of fun with everybody. And so we always give a special thank you to Levin Lewis of Levy Metal Enterprises, to Bradley of Bradley Entertainment, to Twisted Vines Horror Decor out of Rhode Island, and Aces and Eights Skateboards as well. So we really do appreciate those guys of always being so cool, so supportive of us, and down to work with us so we can put together such a cool product.
Thank you, everyone. All right, let's do 10 seconds and we'll be right back.
All the creatures came together. All the angels fell from heaven. In the air, a new vibration. On the streets, a new sensation. Coast to coast, across the nation. Product of a generation. Power of negotiation.
Yeah. Hi, I'm back. We're all back. Physically, I'm mentally not. But anyway, so we're back with Eric Levy of the great band Night Ranger. And he also now has a new side project, which I wanted to touch about with a very dear friend of mine, Tony Harnell, Joel Hoekstra, James Dorenzo, and of course, Matt Starr. Could you talk about it? Because I know the new single is releasing Friday, July 3rd. So
Yeah.
how I knew you played with Joel because he was leaving as you were pretty much coming in. if
We
I
did
can remember.
overlap for a few
2
albums in a few years. Yeah.
Wow.
So let's talk about the Echo Bats.
Awesome.
Ah.
Yeah. Joel really is the one who reached out to me about it, and like I attribute so much of my success early on in really getting some great advice from Joel, because Joel was also from Chicago, but he had moved out east. He moved to New York, and I moved out west to California. But it's when I was first coming in, he had some real wisdom for me, because I was coming from Garage Mahal, and let's just get up on stage and make stuff up and play whatever comes out of your fingers and comes into your head. So coming into Night Ranger, it's such a different mentality. And Joel, the way he broke it down for me, he said, hey, I know you're coming from Garage Mahal, where it was all about improvisation, but in Night Ranger, it's more like you're playing a classical gig, and it's all about execution. Like, here's the part, can you nail it every night? That's Night Ranger, and have fun while doing it. But I think that was really what I needed to hear at that point, because it helped me get my head focused. Like, okay, that's the mindset. That's the mindset that I need to be in. So when Joel had reached out, I was so looking forward to being on the road with him this year anyway, with Whitesnake and Sammy Hagar. So I was bummed about that, but it was great when the pandemic first was coming about. I started getting texts from Joel talking about the Echo Bats, and when he sent me over the song that's going to come out on Friday, oh man, like I loved it instantly. I was like, what is this? It sounded fresh to my ears, and really melodic, and like but at the same time hooky, as well as being sophisticated. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be a part of it, and everybody who's involved. Tony has such a voice. And, James plays great. Matt plays great. Joel, of course, is a phenomenal guitar player. So, yeah, it's a treat to be able to be doing this, and I look forward to everybody finally getting to hear this music.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Awesome.
We can expect like a full-length CD, or is it just like a couple songs here and there, just to fill the time till you guys go back to your full-time gigs?
I'm not sure how much I can say about that, but it's at least on Friday there's going to be a song. Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah. sorry to leave you hanging there. Yeah.
Don't get you in trouble. Just ask.
Absolutely. Hey, Eric, let me jump in for this next one right quick, and then Bobby, why don't you pick it up right after the answer? Just because I want to piggyback a little bit off of the Echo Bats with Steve, just in a different type of way, because like Steve had said, you had played a couple of years with Joel in Night Ranger before he departed for the new opportunity with Whitesnake, and was replaced by Kerry Kelly, who's somebody who I personally am a big fan of, because I follow him back through multiple things, whether it be Alice Cooper, but I also happen to be a big Pretty Boy Floyd fan. So my question when it comes to that was just talk a little bit about the transition. So a lot of these guys, they've got so much history throughout the years with bands playing together, touring with each other and stuff like that. But just talk a little bit about, Kerry, coming on board after Joel and joining that brotherhood.
Sure. Yeah. Kerry, the first time that we jammed with him was when Joel was involved with Night Ranger. He was also playing with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which he's still a part of. So 2011, my first time he left, we had a guitar player come in and sub. But by 2012, it was somebody had brought in Kerry's name and recommended him. And from like the first time we jammed with Kerry, what he's bringing musically, it's like, he's got all the chops, he's got a great feel, but it's like the joy that he's bringing and the spirit that he's bringing to the music, to whatever we're doing. he's just like he's a great guy to be around, and he's Carrie's wonderful. I think maybe my favorite Carrie story was early on. We were playing a show, and we were in the middle of When You Close Your Eyes, and we start in on the guitar solo section, and I'm like, wait a second, I don't hear any guitar solo. And I turn and I look at Carrie, and it's like he's totally oblivious to the fact that he's supposed to be playing a guitar solo at that moment, and he's actually like jamming with Jack, and he and Jack are like jamming out, and he like it, and I'm like, because guitar players, rock and roll guitar players, it's you want somebody who's you want to play with somebody who's got the authority to be able to walk on, right in front and center and play a solo and make it electric. But for somebody like Carrie, who has the ability to do that, but then also isn't so much like, it needs to be about me. He's making it about the band at the same time. So really, what Carrie brings, and musically, and his resume is like ridiculous. All the bands he's jammed with and played. Yeah. Then wherever we go, it's like Carrie knows people. Wherever, like whatever band we're playing, oh yeah, I know this dude, and he's just played with so many people. So what he's able to bring, just from like his experience as a pro for decades, bringing that into the equation too, and being able to talk about the way that different productions have done things. He's quite an asset, very much so.
Absolutely, for sure. I mean, you just look back along just the basics for him, which are incredible, which is, Night Ranger, Alice Cooper, the late, great Janie Lane, and again, PBF. Bobby, take it away, my friend.
All right. So, Eric, you have all these keyboards. So, and a lot of people, this equipment you can't get anymore. What do you think about companies like Artura and these companies who are recreating gear that was made in the 80s that now either nobody can afford or nobody can find? So what's your thought on a lot of companies like Artura and even Corgan that are putting out basically modular keyboards, but everything's being done software wise, just making the sounds, but not doing the magic.
Sure. Arturia makes, they make great software. I feel like, from an ethical standpoint, if you want to be like, well, should so-and-so company be able to be coming out with a keyboard sound that's emulating an analog piece of gear, but then it's like, well, how far back do you want to take that? That analog piece of gear that was created, are they paying royalties to whoever came up with the white keys and the black keys? It's like, who's getting money for that? At some point, it's like, if there's going to be a young musician who gets to experience part of what that magic was like back in the day, and some of the software now is really getting great. There's a company called Yuhi. They have one that's called Diva that I've played on, I think, every single Night Ranger album. I've played Diva because it's, at least when it first came out, they've expanded it a little bit since, but it gives you this modular kind of thing where in the oscillator section, they modeled a Mini Moog, they modeled a Roland Jupiter 6, and the Junos, and so Alan Fitzgerald in the early days of Night Ranger, he was playing Moog synths and he was playing Jupiters. So it's like I get both of those in this modular kind of thing. So I've sat there and played around like, what would it sound like if I get like the triple oscillator of the Moog into the 12 dB filter of the Jupiter, and getting to play around with things like that. Another Yuhi product is called Repro. Models the Prophet 1 and Prophet 5, and just absolutely brilliant. But on the tip of ethical, I think the really big question now is with what Behringer is doing on the hardware front.
Really?
And I don't know you know, it's like I've got these. It's like right now they've got oh, forgive me, my friends at Moog, for even saying, but it's their mini Moog clones that they have on the market right now. They have it's like a tabletop version, but then they've also got a version with a keyboard that has 4-voice paraphonic, which means you can play up to 4 notes at a time. It's not true polyphony because of the same filter and envelopes. But sorry, that's getting that's getting really into
We're geeking out
there. But it's like they're bringing these things to market. Like they're coming out with their Model D at the same time as Moog actually has a reissue of their Model D that they're charging a lot more money for, and rightfully so for what they're selling. But the way the Behringer sounds, it's like, to my ears, it sounds exceptional. Like it sounds like the real deal to me. And it's not just Moog who they're doing that. They've come out with this whole line of synths, and they're not just copying others. They've got some that are their own design too, and what they're doing is brilliant, and it's definitely shaking the market, but whatever it is ethically. But if you are a young keyboard player, I would say, you know, you're just starting out and you want to get into real analog synthesizers, you know, go ahead and try one of these Behringers or something that you can get for less money, because like really great analog synthesizers are being made now. It's almost kind of like the golden age of it, that the number of them that are being made, and the quality of instruments that still the Moog is coming out with the Moog 1 is, and a company like Sequential Circuits coming out with their Prophet X, and some really revolutionary synths that they're making too. So it's really an amazing time. And I hope though that there are enough people around who are like me, who are you know, it's like I'm fortunate enough to be working in music where I can justify paying more money for a synth that's my favorite synth I've ever played, which is the Moog 1. Yeah.
But you never want to take an expense. The great thing is with the software nowadays, when you're doing fly gigs or whatever, you can take your computer with a modular 88 weighted key and get the same sounds, instead of taking your $30,000 keyboard out on the road and knowing that, you know, it could either get lost in the airport or damaged or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. And I've actually gone in the opposite direction. When I first started with Night Ranger, I was playing a laptop on stage for the first few years. I was doing that, and just all kinds of problems all the time. And the biggest issue was my ill-fated decision to buy in on the Native Instruments software, which was called Core. So I was already using elements of it, but it's like I went full on, you know, bought the controller, set up my entire rig with most of my sounds that I was using on stage at that time were Native Instruments, or at the very least Contact, a little bit of Arturia at that point as well. But then that summer of 2011, Core discontinued. Native Instruments was like, sorry, everybody, we're discontinuing Core altogether. So I was like, well, great. Where does that leave me? So it's, you know, so then it's like unsupported software, less and less supported software. And just with all the glitches, and we finally played this show in London one night where it just went out completely, and we couldn't get it back and running. And I just ended up playing the hardware. I would always get backlined a Yamaha motif to just play. My thinking being, okay, you know, if it's like really, you know, the worst possible scenario and my computer goes, at least, okay, I'll have a keyboard there that I can play a Sister Christian on the piano and get us through the night. So, you know, but sadly, I was in that mode on this show in London. It's, you know, it was a terrible feeling. Absolutely, I felt like I let everybody down, and so after that, I was like, I really came to this realization of, you know, for a certain gig, sure, absolutely, the laptop would be the way to go. But Night Ranger, who we are, the kind of touring that we're doing, the kind of personnel that we have, really, I need to focus on reliability. and reliability needs to be number one. And it's like if I'm going to listen and be like, oh, I was getting a better piano sound out of the laptop than I am out of the motif, it's like better to make that sacrifice, I feel, and have something that's just like rock solid. And that's what the Yamaha motif has been for us. So, and what I've noticed was I feel so much more engaged in what we're actually doing together, playing music. Like before, I was so worried about equipment failure all the time, or little glitches. I was always having little MIDI. I'd play a note and I'd hear some weird what was and I'm like half playing and half on the laptop trying to fix stuff. And now it's like I can just be in it and be in the moment of playing music together and not be worried about the tech.
Absolutely. For sure, man. It's super cool. So, Eric, this is right about the time that we're just going to hit you with a few closing questions, if that's cool, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Max, why don't you jump in with your question, then we'll kick it over to Angel to wrap up the fans.
Yeah, well, actually, have you... we talk a lot about music tonight, about your music, but what other types of music do you enjoy or you listen, being a pianist, for example? Well, I don't know, for example, I'm from Argentina, and I know that jazz players, they love tango, right? Tango music, and sometimes they get together, or those fusions are amazing, when you get people that can play the same type of music. What other type of music do you love that you feel that you can play also,
Yeah, I listen to a lot of jazz. More the album I definitely listen to more than any other is actually the album I'll usually put myself to sleep with. I've got young kids here at the house, and it's just easier for me to fall asleep if I'm listening to music. And the album that's really been doing it for me is this old Teddy Wilson. This is probably recorded back in the 1930s.
Wow.
But just jazz piano, and but I'm able to listen to that just solo jazz piano, and my mind just is able to float with that helps me get out of the space of thinking thoughts
Nice.
and getting trapped there and not being able to sleep. But that being said, though, too, it's I think I've got eclectic tastes. Sometimes I really want to listen to classical music. Sometimes I really want to listen to hip hop. Sometimes I only want to listen to fuzz guitar or sometimes just 90s alt rock is growing up in the I'm like, that's just I just want to listen to Soundgarden or Foo Fighters or whatever else. So lots of jazz though still too, but it's I don't know, I don't feel so much tied to genre, and I
Very
think
cool.
maybe that's a good thing about our times too, is that I think people maybe less and less feel like they have to fit into a certain I'm only allowed to listen to certain bands because other bands my friends won't think are cool. It's like, I think nowadays people are you listen to whatever you want to listen to. Most people have a music subscription if they're into music at all.
Yep. Very cool.
Absolutely, for sure. Angel, final question from yourself, brother, as well as the fans?
Final question from the fan comes from Brandon. He wants to know, what kind of model is the intro to Secret of My Success? It is so unique.
Oh, sure. That was a shout out and much thanks to my predecessor in Night Ranger, Christian Cullen, who, as I was coming into the band, was kind enough to send me the samples that he was using, and one of them was a loop that he had created of the intro to Secret of My Success. And I'm proud to say that at least for, I guess I'm a purist at heart, but Night Ranger doesn't use tracks. Like, we don't, every note you hear being sung, that's like being actually sung in that moment. There's no tracks going on whatsoever. So when I'm holding down that loop on Secret of My Success, that's the closest we get to pre-recorded tracks, is me physically holding down that key. But initially, I think David Foster had a lot to do with that song. He was the composer on that film, The Secret of My Success. So yeah, I think he was instrumental in creating what that is. And David Foster, it's brilliant and time-honored producer, which I think it's awesome that Night Ranger had music that came out of that relationship as well.
Nice.
And what's the toughest thing about being on the road?
Wow. Missing my family, but that being said, the mentality that I try to have is wherever I am, that's where I am, and so when I am on the road and I'm thinking about one of my kids and I'm like, oh, I'm here miles away from them and whatever they're doing, but then it's like I'll also think, well, hey, I'm able to be doing what I really wanted to for a living. It's like if I had my choice to retire tomorrow, I wouldn't retire tomorrow. I want to keep doing this as long as I'm able to. So it's like I'm making the choice to be on the road, and as long as I'm able to remind myself of that, like just try and be present wherever I am. But then that goes for when I'm home too. It's especially when I've been on the road a lot. It's like when I'm home, I really try and be like, I'll keep the phone in the other room, probably to the detriment of my career at times, but and just really try and focus my energy on, hey, now I'm with my family and I'm home. And that's been really kind of the great thing about this pandemic for me. If there is a great side of it, is that my entire adult life I've been touring, so to get a chance to like really be there for my children and a part of their lives at this young age. Our youngest is 7 months old, so yeah, getting to hang with this little guy, and he's spitting up on me and all of it, but it's great, and I'm happy to be able to be doing that as long as I'm here, and and I'm optimistic that concerts are going to come back, and people still are going to want to go and hear music. So so when I get to that point, then hopefully I'll be able to be back on the road playing music and be there as well.
Absolutely, man, for sure. Like something from me, just kind of to close it down. Mine's just kind of a fun. So, in your time now in Night Ranger, where you've got 3 studio albums under your belt, you've got 2 live albums under your belt. When you're just kind of out and about, and a Night Ranger song comes on, whether it's from before you or current, what do you kind of think about that? Or do you just kind of shrug it and be like, I play on the road 250 nights a year. You know what? Let's see what else is on.
It depends on the context. There are times where, recently I just put on the whole Somewhere in California album. I was like, I haven't listened to this in years and years. I'll put this on. And listening to it brought me back to all these memories of being in the studio with the band for the first time, and, memories of being, going on these bus tours, playing amphitheaters around the country in 2011. It brings back great memories. Music for me is like that too. It's like that for everybody, right? Where it's like, I think one of the magical things about music is you can hear a song and it'll like really take you back to. You'll have memories that you would never have access to any other way. That music brings back to you. Yeah, I experienced that as well, and even with songs that I played. But I think Goodbye came up when I was shuffling yesterday on my commute, and whenever I hear one of those tunes, it's apt to just bring me back to remembering being in some city somewhere playing that song, and I think because the experience of Night Ranger really is fun. Like, it genuinely really is fun. A lot. It's a blast playing that show. So I generally have good feelings associated with them.
For sure. And again, we're super optimistic too about live shows coming back because at least down here in Maryland, we do tentatively have you on M3 2020 in September. So we're definitely hoping to get you for that.
That was one of the biggest bummers for me because M3 was one of the first to get postponed.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I was so looking forward to it.
Yeah.
The few times that we've played there before, it's like it really. What a fun, what an incredibly fun festival that is to play. Yeah. Just to be a part of. M3 is wonderful. Yeah, I hope whenever it comes back, I don't know when that's going to be, but whenever it comes back, I can't wait to come back. Columbia, Maryland. Yeah.
Yeah, brother. Tentatively still hanging on there, Labor Day weekend of this year. So, we'll just have to wait and see. Steve, do you have anything else on your brain, my man?
Absolutely. The question is that you mentioned Joel Hoekstra, like he kind of took you under his wing when you were first joining Night Ranger. The question is, out of all the bands that you've toured with, meaning like Whitesnake and you've toured with Journey and did the Foreigner thing, besides the band members in your band, meaning Night Ranger, any of them you could say are like friends? Besides tour friends, I mean, like you could call them on the phone and say, hey, that's before the whole social distancing and the whole pandemic BS happened, could you call them and say, hey, let's go out and grab a bite to eat, or your families get together and you all get together and hang out? Is there anyone like that?
Oh, it's I'm sorry to say I don't have really because of having young kids. It's like as soon as the young kids started to happen, when I'm home, it's like I'm not hanging out with anybody. I'm not, talking on the phone. Sure, absolutely. Chatting on the internet, chatting wherever all. But yeah, it's when I'm home, it's I'm home. I'm fortunate to have this incredible studio here with all these keyboards that I love surrounding me. And that's something that I get here, and my kids and my wife are something that I get here at home. So. Yeah, just the logistics of it all, plus, being on tour, I guess, my entire adult life. It's like when I'm home, even if I wasn't playing keyboards, it's still nice to be home when I'm home. So, yeah, I hope that isn't kind of like a cop-out answer, because there are certainly people who I've made friends with in other bands who, yeah, absolutely, great people, great, a lot of, I think. My peer group, I guess, would be non-original members of classic rock bands, right? But my experience with us is most of us are pretty even keel and easier to get along with, and I think that makes sense from a chemistry perspective, because if you're a band that has been around for decades, you've been through it enough with band members to know that. You want to be around with cool guys. You want to be around people who don't stress you out. So yeah. So that being said, yeah, some really really great guys in some of these other bands, without question.
Absolutely, awesome. For sure. And Eric, we really want to take a second to say thank you again, man, for joining us, man. Before I put a little bow on everything, Angel, do we have any finals from the fans? One more chance.
Yes. Brandon, how much do you enjoy the Disney gig?
Oh, the Disney gig. Well, it's. I think I enjoyed it more than anybody else in the band, being the one with small children. So for me, it was like, oh, this is like a paid vacation for the family, like every year, and it would be like what my kids looked forward to most. I remember. When our 7-year-old, when she was first in kindergarten, and her introducing me to her friend, saying that her daddy worked at Disney World, and I'm like, that's to her, that's the ultimate, if you work at Disney World, you're like the coolest it possibly gets to her. So yeah, like getting the family out and the kids doing the meet and greets with the Snow Whites and all that. Yeah, I think I really got to have an amazing time with it. But then also, we'd have people at Epcot who we would see out there. A lot of times, other people within our organization or friends of the band are people who do plan their vacations around it, and so it feels like it's a kind of like a Night Ranger family vacation every time we've done it. It's little kids around, not just mine, but from crew and management as well. So yeah, always fun with it. Plus, I got my start. I guess my first touring gig was Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia, for a couple summers when I was in college. And so yeah, I feel like I'm coming from. I know what it's like on the other side to be in the band that's getting up every morning and putting on the polyester purple bow tie and getting out there in the heat to really appreciate it.
Nice.
Absolutely, for sure. Well, Eric, thanks again, man. I hope you had a good time, man. We really enjoyed rocking out with you guys tonight. We want to thank our fans so much. You guys are great. We do this for you. We do this for our guests. We really, really love it. Look, some people out there might not want you to tell them that you love them, but we want you to tell us that you love us because we love you too.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everybody. For Angel Alamo, for Max Ash, for Bobby Dreyer, Psycho Steve, I'm Jay. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Metal Summit. We love you so much.
And happy 4th of July, dude.
Happy 4th of July.
Yeah.
USA!
You can still rock on the internet. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
You can still rock in
Next
America.
episode of the Metal Summit. Guest announcement coming up shortly. Thank you again, Eric. Enjoy yourself. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you guys
for having me.
very soon.
Well,
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bright stars through the perilous fight. For the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, land of the free.
You are listening to the Metal Summit, your source for all things rock and roll.